My name is Kiki, and today we are speaking with Angelyna. Before we get started, a little about me. I am currently an AIFS Abroad Alumni Ambassador, and I have this opportunity to be today's host from participating in my education abroad in Paris, France in spring 2024. And I cannot wait to hear about your experience, Angelyna. Could you start by sharing with me which AIFS Abroad program you did?
So I studied abroad this past spring semester in Seoul, South Korea at Sogang University.
So, could you tell me a little bit about why you chose to study in Seoul?
I've always wanted to study abroad. I was really lucky that my aunt and uncle studied abroad in their college years, so they definitely motivated me, encouraged me to get a chance at that anytime I could. And specifically Seoul, I've always been involved in Korean culture since I was young. My aunts and uncles really loved K-pop growing up, second generation K-pop, so I was exposed to that early on. And then I got my mom into it, so all of my family is well involved in Korean culture, and then I thought, what better to study abroad there and actually experience it for myself. So yeah.
That's really beautiful, and it's really sweet to hear how much your family really enjoys Korean culture, not just the music, but the culture as a whole. So, before your trip, what was your biggest obstacle prior, and how did you end up overcoming that?
I think the biggest obstacle was definitely the mental and emotional challenge behind knowing you're going to leave. I think I'm definitely a friends and family oriented person. So imagining not having their immediate support while abroad, but it was definitely a personal growth thing. I definitely needed that independence.
So, how did AIFS support you while you were studying abroad?
Was so lucky to have the best directors, in my opinion. I had my director Alice and director Anna, and they were the best because they were so down to earth, and it made talking to them really easy. They didn't feel um like a higher up, like a professor of some sort. They really felt easy to talk to. So that made me feel more welcome to go to them with problems such as homesickness and any struggles I had. And also because they were so down to earth, they were so easy to talk to for plans and what to do. Where should I explore? Are you down to go to a cafe with me? They were always open to hanging out with us and guiding us wherever needed, and they just made Seoul feel so much more approachable, especially as someone who didn't speak fluent Korean going. I was a bit afraid and apprehensive trying new things, but they were so quick to set up with me and meet with me, and put me on all their favorite spots.
That's so sweet, and I'm glad to hear that they were so supportive and welcoming to you as well. AIFS's program directors make the programs that students go on just so much more immersive because they give you a little bit of that inside perspective that's really hard for foreign students to find ahead of time. And I did also hear that you mentioned that you don't speak fluent Korean. So, that being said, how was it in terms of the language barrier? Did you already know a decent amount of Korean before you got to Korea, or was it something that you were learning along the way? And do you feel like it maybe affected your experience a little bit?
So prior to this trip, I didn't know proficient Korean. I was very beginner. All I did was some Duolingo, but then I actually took Korean 101 as I was going through my courses at study abroad. And I would say it was a barrier at first because I would say if you are externally East Asian appearing, they will assume that you are more or less Korean. And so they locals will always talk to me in Korean first, and then I would tell them "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm studying. I'm trying my best." And then they would accommodate with English. So I think especially with Seoul, it was very easy to navigate because a lot of people were familiar that tourists and foreigners were in the city, and so everything always almost had an English sign, and they were always very happy to translate or look at my phone with my translating app, and so I never felt too afraid to talk to people. But I would say it affected my experience in that I wasn't able to, I would say, connect with more local students because it's hard to create a friendship because of that language barrier. I was more friendly with other study abroad students rather than local students.
Okay, yeah, no, I can understand and see how that makes it a little bit difficult. Do you mind telling me a little bit about a cultural experience that you were part of or that you observed that you felt was very moving?
Right when I studied abroad in Seoul, there were recent political happenings involving their democratic process and previous president, and so I witnessed firsthand the true inimitable Korean spirit in the act of their protests. They are such a hardy people, and in one of my courses, I learned a little bit about Korean history in the aspect of the coming of the democratic nation. And so I learned about the June 1987 democratic struggle, which was really moving because one of the main protesters at the time was students like myself and like you. And that was really moving to me because I got to visit a memorial museum after 𝗟𝗧𝗦, who was unfortunately killed by a tear gas canister during that struggle. And it really moved me because with also the political happenings in the US as well, I feel like students are at the forefront of these social movements. And that really connected with me because I am I was his age when he passed away during that protest. And it really just opened my eyes that, you know, Korean culture and people, they are much more than, what people see through the K-wave, like through K-pop and K-drama. Like they are real people with real struggles. And, it's students like me and you who actually make things change in your country. And I definitely was so moved by his story and by learning about that in the midst of everything happening in the country.
That is incredible, and I absolutely love how much of the history that you ended up picking up from all the events that were happening, and also just I'm assuming you guys were talking about these things in your Korean class as well. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the photos that we have in our backgrounds. We each have one, so could you tell me about a little bit about the photo that you selected?
So behind me is the Namsan Tower, which is a very, very tall tower in Seoul. It sits on like a very tall hill, and so it's like kind of like the highest point that you can always see, and it's also in like a very popular area. It's near where the main palace is, where the city hall is, and within like a very busy section. And for me, this was actually one of the first stops I ever made in my first week in Korea. It was like Saturday. And after like a hectic week of going through classes and like getting accommodated and used to things, this was our first AIFS excursion where we went to the main palace and then Namsan Tower after. And for me, this photo that I took holds a lot of memory because I remember this was like my big whoa moment. Like I'm in Korea and it really hit me that I was going to study abroad there for 3 months. This is actually happening after like a year and a half of planning. And especially being like in this part, you can actually go into this observatory area and being there and like seeing like the whole city like below me, it was so, so mind-boggling. But yeah, you can never replace those like true first feelings of realizing like you're in another country, you have so much to explore, so much to do. And yeah, even now I can't stop smiling about it.
What are some things that you found were really useful or just completely not necessary during your time abroad? And what are some packing tips that you have for some future study abroad students?
I'm very much, like I said, a friends and family oriented person. And so I brought with me photos. They're the easiest thing because they're so flat and small, but they're the easiest thing to remind you of home. Like once I decorated my room, I felt like, oh, this is me. This isn't just an empty room that I'm gonna stay in for the next few months. So that was super important to me. It made my room feel like a home to come back to. And I would say some unnecessary things, you could pack less. Um, I promise you, you will buy everything. Oh my God. Especially where I went. I went to Seoul. There's everything there for you. But definitely, I would say bring your favorite snack. I brought a few of my favorite snacks, and that definitely kept me grounded in a time where I was like, homesick within like the first month-ish. And so when I ate those, I was like, oh, like this tastes like home. Pack less, as in you won't need as much clothes as you might think you need. Also, you will shop, so do account for that. And then also know how much you want to bring back home because once you go there and you have you're full of suitcases, you have to realize, how do I bring back that stuff? and everything I bought. I am definitely a victim. I actually bought another suitcase to bring back home. So yeah, so definitely think about that. When I was lugging those three throughout the airport, it was not very fun.
No,
Um,
I can imagine. If you can, try to Russian doll your suitcase. So have your like carry-on or like smaller suitcase inside of your larger suitcase and just pack it. Like not pack it full, but like pack your carry-on with whatever you need to, then put it in the big suitcase and just cushion around it, put stuff around it to keep it safe and protected and pack just go with that because that's gonna give you hopefully enough space to come home with souvenirs and additional items that you might come across while you're abroad.
I think also with packing, it definitely depends on the country you're going to. Even though I packed as minimally as I could, like you said, I still overestimated some things, like how much clothes I would need and everything, because I also went during winter time. And so I had to bring a lot of thick layers because it was very cold in Seoul. Um, but I will say when you're abroad, you get very creative with layering. You get very
Yes.
creative with layering different items you have and making different outfits, so you can really just survive off of those few shirts and few items. Like, you don't need your whole wardrobe. um the only thing I wore most of the time was my big puffer jacket, so how would they know underneath that?
So how did your study abroad experience affect your perspective and your of the world and also your current studies and future career?
I think it completely changed my worldview in that I was very interested in traveling prior to my study abroad, but I think this just like completely like tipped off the cap. Like, I am so forever interested now. I think a really monumental thing is that I went this past spring and I'm 20. And so this coming summer I'm turning 21 and I'm entering my 20s officially, I would say. And so like this has really shaped my outlook for the next, I would say, 10 years, in that I want to travel more. I want to go back to Korea. I want to travel and I want to live abroad again if I can, possibly. I think that's definitely like in my books now. I want to make that a thing, like make it happen. So I think being able to travel abroad and live abroad really expanded my horizons in that I'm not just limiting myself to my home country. Rather, like I can imagine myself flourishing outwards and going to different parts of the world. It really just elevated that. And also, it just made me want to learn more and pursue more academia. Studying abroad was really beneficial because the course I was taking felt 10 times more impactful because I was abroad. My time was limited. And so when I was in class, I was actively learning and making sure I was absorbing what I was knowing. And then outside, I had as much fun as I could. And so it didn't even feel like, the typical routine school. It felt so fun and it felt so like even more rewarding knowing that after a test I could go, explore and do a new thing. And so, yeah, I was even looking into like studying abroad for possibly my master's program, something like that in the future. Again, nothing's concrete yet, but I have very high hopes for myself ever since this journey. So, yeah.
Oh, that's so exciting and so touching. And I think anyone who studies abroad can confidently say that they cannot stop traveling. Like once you go abroad, there's no going back. You have to see the rest of the world. You have to keep traveling. You have to keep going on these adventures. It's very hard to like adjust back to a world where you're very sedimentary and you're like arrested in the one spot. And that's something that I really struggled with transitioning back to when I came back home. That being said, now what are some lifestyle changes that you enjoyed while you were in Korea and you ended up taking home with you?
Definitely incorporating Korean food into my daily, everyday life. I have learned so many recipes since coming back because of the fact that I love eating Korean food as a whole. But I would say lifestyle changes include definitely just getting outside more. I think prior to study abroad, I was so stuck in routine, which is not a bad thing. I'm a very routine oriented person. But I will say being abroad helped me tap into more spontaneity in my schedule, in that I can always make time for exploring and doing new things. Prior to that, I was so stuck in routine in that I didn't even think it was possible to fit in time for trying new things and having fun. I realized like I'm a student, I'm young, and I can make time to do things even when things are tough. I know that, coming back, I will be loaded with, exams and work and all that. But I think Korea like made me realize like, time is short and you could definitely always make more time to do something fun on the weekend, even if it's something small or like exploring in your hometown. I think that was really eye-opening too, because coming back, I was able to appreciate my hometown in different ways I didn't see beforehand, especially when you're away. Like you become homesick, and so you remember and miss certain things that you didn't really miss before. I think that's the biggest lifestyle change. Like still doing more, getting out more, and being more explorative, even like in at home. So yeah.
That's very beautiful and very well said. Thank you so much for sharing that. I definitely agree in that the adventures, the little weekend trips, making time to have fun or making time for yourself is something that I've also taken home with me from my time in Paris. I really benefited a lot from just being able to sit with myself and explore new places. And yes, I'm familiar with where I live. I'm familiar with my hometown, but I could always go over one city and find the downtown region and just explore for a day and see what I find. And you never know, you might find what your new favorite place. You might come across something that you forgot about after a long time. It's always fun to explore in that way, or just bring a little bit of adventure back into your day-to-day life when you're back home.
I think you and I can see like all the changes that's been happening in our area. Like so many new things are popping up. And I think that is a result of everyone else traveling, you know? I think everyone's horizons are like being broadened by like traveling.
When you did finally come back after your time abroad, how did you feel? And what are some challenges that you are maybe currently experiencing and readjusting back to your routine and back to being home?
And I think immediate feelings I had was like decision like overload. Like I was just so tired. Living abroad, being independent, oh my gosh, it was so tiring. I didn't even realize how tiring it was until I came home. And I'm currently with my parents. And so like when my parents just, we got back into a routine where I did like household chores and stuff. It was like, oh, there's food at home. Oh, like I don't have to do as much. Oh, my room is here. Like it felt like a huge weight lifted off my chest. However, that comes with a drawback, right? Like you have less independence that way. But I think that's like I would say the overall crossroads I'm at this moment in my life. Like I am 20, but I am still trying to figure out what to do from here on out. And I think being abroad really makes you think about that in like the long term too. Like when you're away, you realize, oh, what do you actually want for yourself? And where do you want to go? And so I think that's like all the thoughts and feelings I've been having this past month.
Very interesting. You've had like you said, an introspective pause, but it was productive in its own way.
Yeah.
A lot of people, whenever I speak to them about this, they actually share that they kind of are in this depressive funk where they feel like they can't do anything.
I think like because I studied abroad by myself, I didn't like, go with any friends or anyone I knew. So I think I haven't been able to get much feedback on what I've been feeling. Does that make sense? Like I don't know what others think after their study abroad. Before I moved back, I had this like mourning period in Korea where I thought about, oh, I'm leaving. Like it's actually hitting me. And so I kind of went through like this mourning phase of like, oh, I won't have this anymore, this, right? And I think I had that depressive funk in the middle of my study abroad program, um, because I feel like I am a very unique person in that my mind gets ahead of myself. I'm very introspective and I think about things way further than I need to. And so I was already like, thinking about again ahead. I always do that, kind of bad, kind of not. But I think that kind of made it easier for me to adjust back because I realized like, you know, one end of a chapter is the start of a new.
Last but not least, if you could give other potential study abroad students one piece of advice before they go abroad, what would it be?
During my abroad journey, I constantly had this lingering feeling of knowing and like being keenly aware that I was a foreigner. Being able to study abroad and being able to truly enjoy it is to understand that that's okay. Especially in Seoul, it is a very homogeneous culture. it is really true that everyone looks like each other, everyone wants to follow each other, and it is very like group-minded culture. And so being a foreigner, in some cases, I think in the beginning I really wanted to mimic that, but then that led to me feeling more and more like an outsider. So like the opposite effect, right? Just knowing that you are visiting this country and you have this chance to, that's the best thing you're contributing. Like your own mind and your own ideas and your culture and like sharing that with and incorporating that experience with the country you're studying abroad in. I think that's the most like unique thing you bring. And I think that took me a while to accept because I had this always lingering like, oh, I'm the odd one out, or I don't look like everyone else here. But eventually, I would say like by the end of my trip, I realized like that was okay. Being me was the best way that I interact with others. Like, you know, I was their friend too in Korea. So I hope that makes sense. Yeah.
That's really beautiful, and I really do appreciate that. And I think having this understanding that you are still an outsider in your host country and being respectful of the surroundings and the space that you're visiting while also sharing a little bit of your culture and your diversity and a little bit of yourself is definitely something that a lot of students could benefit from hearing before they go abroad, especially because a lot of them feel like they either have to completely change themselves or hide behind a mask, or they might feel like they don't know how to approach others in this new society because there are different social roles, there are different expectations. So it's trying to learn what's expected of you in this new society and then trying to then take those roles and say, hey, here's a little piece of me that I'm bringing with it.
Yeah, I think that definitely takes a lot of patience too, adjusting to like new social cues and like behaviors. Like in Korean, there's this thing called nunchi. So like a lot of foreigners aren't expected to have this concept because it's like kind of reading the room, having manners, and it's a very complex thing that is hard to approach when you're outside of Korean culture. But again, just like having an open mind and understanding you're a visitor and you should do your best to respect what is, given to you, but also knowing like you do also have this, I would say, other tough job of like, cracking that foreigner stereotype that's on you as well. I think that's something definitely like I would say a lot of people would experience studying abroad too. They have like these predetermined, notions of what you might act like or be like, but you're authentically you no matter where you go. So yeah, having a good idea of that.
Oh, thank you so much. And I really appreciate you taking time to share your perspective and your experiences today. So that wraps up my conversation today with Angelyna. Thank you all so much for listening in, and thank you to Angelyna for chatting with me and sharing your experiences. Please don't forget to subscribe so that you can hear more stories about studying and living abroad. See you next time.